Hey class, welcome to another demo. Today I want to show you how to make custom patterns. So as you can see from the title, all of these effects you can actually design within Illustrator and then save to your swatches palette and then apply to some pretty cool things. So let's go ahead and get into this. First things first, I'm just going to delete stuff here so I actually have an artboard I can work with. And what we're going to do is we're just going to use basic shapes. So I was thinking of having two different examples. One would be taking letters and creating a pattern out of letters. And then the second one will be taking just like simple shapes like circles and creating patterns out of circles. So let's start with letters first. I'm thinking about this in a creative way, and I'm thinking about perhaps like the letter P and D and B, and those all kind of seem like the same letter. And so if I rotate them and orient them in different ways, that could be a kind of cool pattern to look at. So I'm just going to take my type tool, hotkey T, I'm going to type, I'm going to put letter P, just a capital P, and then I am going to scale it up, so I'm holding shift and scaling it. I want you to follow along in this exercise and go ahead and make a pattern with the letter P, just so that you can actually repeat the same thing that I'm doing on your end. And so I've got my letter P. I'm going to outline this, and so in order to create an outline, we're going to go to Object, and then let's see, actually it's Type, and then Create Outlines. So Shift Control O creates outlines. Again, I've learned the keyboard shortcut, so it's hard for me to remember where it is, but Type, Create Outlines, Shift Control O. When I do that, again, if I go into my outlines view, I can see that I've got some type that's hanging out there. I'm going to delete it. When I go into outlines view, you can see the P is actually transparent when I go to outlines instead of being black. That means it's actually an object. So I'm going to take this P, I'm going to make a copy of it. So I'm going to hold Alt, I'm going to click, drag, and I hold Shift while I'm doing that. Then I'm going to rotate this P upside down. And for this logo or this pattern of repetition, I'm really not looking for anything super complicated, so I'm just going to rotate it. Then I'm going to select both P's and I'm going to scale them down and just make them kind of small. So now it's PD. I don't know what that is. Police department. Whatever. I'm going to click on one. I'm going to change the color. Maybe we'll make this analogous color scheme. So black, and then, I don't know, black and orange is kind of cool, like a red-orange. So let's say that that's the mark that we're wanting to go for. And I'm going to play with a few different options here. So I'm going to hold down Shift and do an Alt copy to make another version as well. So I want to see how these two orientations create different patterns. And so there's some element of experimentation, or the virtue of experimentation, that I want you to bring into this process to come up with some kind of cool and exciting patterns for yourself. I'm going to select my DP and I'll go Control G to group, and I'm going to select the other one and I'll group that as well. So I have two different groups, and my hope is to make two different patterns out of these letters. So in order to create a pattern, we're going to select the artwork. I'll zoom in so you can actually see it. So I'm selecting the artwork. I'm going to go up to Object and then down the menu to Pattern, and then you'll see the selection there to Make. So I'll hit Make, and what ends up happening is it just takes those two elements and it just like repeats them in its basic pattern preset. And so there's this, I'm going to hit OK. So new pattern has been added to the swatches panel. You can see it to the side there in your swatches panel, and I'm just going to hit OK. The neat thing about this is you've got this window that popped up, dialog box, that allows you to actually like control how this pattern actually sits in relationship to all the other parts. And so this is where you can kind of mess around with some neat global effects. So we can change our name. So we're going to call it the PD tile or pattern. Sounds good. In my tile type, I can do a bunch of different setups of like how the pieces sit next to each other. So we've got brick row by row. You can see how that creates a different orientation. We've got brick by column. And then we've got hex by column and hex by row. So depending on like what you're actually looking for, you may find a different tile type is actually going to create the best effect for the pattern that you're interested in creating. So I think I'll just go hex by row. And I want you to see the next area here is width and height. So you can actually kind of experiment with how the types or the pattern pieces sit next to each other horizontally as well as vertically. And so you can see now the width is now 0.3142. If I make it larger, so to 0.4, what you'll probably notice is that the tile pieces, the pieces that repeat, are going to spread apart. So I'm going to click into the next field and we'll see a preview. So you can see the letters kind of spread apart from each other horizontally. And in that same way, if I take my height, which is 0.3953, and make it bigger, so to 0.5, and then I click in the field up above again, we'll see the preview, like the pattern is kind of spreading out. So I'm going to tighten it up. I'll make my width 0.3, so things are going to get really close. And we can see that. And then I'll make my height 0.4. And you can see the pattern, just kind of like those pieces that are within this hexagonal blue tile in the middle. You can kind of see how those pieces are going to interact with each other when it's repeated in the pattern. So understand that you can modify that. The next area is dealing with overlap. And so you can see you've got left in front overlap or right in front overlap, and you can see a little bit of a movement taking place between those two. Then you've got top in front overlap, which it's already set on, and bottom in front overlap. And so depending on how you want your pieces to kind of sit, you can create these different effects of overlapping. The copies per the grid, you can actually increase that just so you have a sense of like how big the pattern becomes. And then you've got some other modifications you can do there. So you can dim the copies that are outside the actual tile piece. That's the blue outline hexagon right now. And whether or not you want to see the tile edge. So I'm going to say this looks kind of cool. Maybe I'm going to spread the width out a little bit more, 0.35. Maybe I'm going to bring it in just a little bit, 0.34. That kind of looks nice. I'm going to mess with the height a little bit, 0.42. I'm going to see what that looks like. Kind of spreading it out just a little bit. Just kind of giving, I'm giving breathing space around the vertical members of the P and the D. So I like that. At the top of the screen, you can hit done, you can hit save a copy, or you can get out of this pattern making process. So I'm just going to hit done. And if you look now, right here within your swatches panel, you can see we've got a new pattern with our DPs. So I'm going to zoom out. I don't know if that actually worked on my screen there, but hopefully it did. And let's go and test it out. So if I zoom out, I can take this piece and move it away. I could delete it if I wanted to. I'm going to take a rectangle from my rectangle tool. I'll select the swatch that I want, and then when I click and drag, you can now see this PD pattern has created this new swatch pattern, and it's filling in that rectangle. It's kind of cool too if you wanted to draw more rectangles within that same pattern. You can see that those rectangles will actually overlap, and the pattern kind of extends between all the pieces. So there's my two patterns, or my new pattern. I'm going to go ahead and draw a circle to add it. So that's using just like simple letters to create a pattern. Last thing I'll do is I'll just repeat this process, but this time I'm just going to use circles to create, I don't know, kind of an interesting pattern as well. I've found that scale, so if you can make smaller parts, depending on the design application, sometimes those patterns will read better if the pieces are smaller. Again, it depends on your what your goals are for your design needs. So I'm going to draw a circle. I'm going to fill this with just a solid color. I'll just go red. And I don't know, maybe we'll make more of like a random grouping of circles. So just playing around here. Let's say we'll just do something like this. Again, I don't really know if this is going to work out. I'm kind of just playing around here. I downloaded a color scheme, but I think I'm going to choose to just pick my own colors from the global swatch library here. So there's an orange. I'll keep a red. I'll pick a darker red. Maybe I'll go for this like magenta. And maybe I'll put another circle on top here and just make it, I don't know, maybe I'll just keep it in that dark red. And then this one, I think just to modify and create a little bit of air, I'm going to just make it outlines. So now I've got this, these basic layouts of these shapes. I'm now going to group these together, so Control G. Not really sure if you need to group them. So I've got them grouped together, Control G. And now I'm going to go through the same process and see what kind of patterns I'll create here. I'm anticipating the pieces are going to get too big, so I'm going to scale it down. It's not too bad. You can see my stroke stayed the same width, so it kind of looks like it got a little thicker. And now I'm going to go into the pattern making setup. So object, down to pattern, and then make. New pattern has been created or added to the swatches panel. I'll hit OK. It's giving me a preview right away. It's kind of fun. I don't know if I'm really going to need to modify it too much. I'll call this circles. So funky circles. Again, part of this is like I didn't really anticipate what this would look like. I didn't have a great idea what it would look like, and so I'm just experimenting to see what ends up happening. This time I think I'll stick with the grid, and maybe I will change my height. Maybe I'll make it a little higher, so 0.65. I don't know if that's going to work. I'll put it back to 0.6. Maybe I can change my orientation to brick by row. Let's see what that looks like. Huh. Kind of creates some like chains going through the pattern. It's kind of fun. Brick offset. You can do by 2/3, 3/4. Again, I'm just kind of like picking my way through here and just seeing like what makes a nice pattern. I can also do brick by column. That doesn't really look as cool, so I'm going to do brick by row. And let's see, I could do some overlap, but I don't think I'm going to. Let's make our width a little bit wider, so I'll set it to 1. and then I'm going to hit done. I can delete this piece. Again, right there. I don't know if you can see it. I've got my funky circles little symbol right there in my patterns swatch palette. So I'm going to just take a circle, drag a circle out, and then I can click on my new pattern, my funky circles, and you can see it there. So again, this is the process of creating patterns, and it could potentially be a neat way to incorporate a little bit more of a dynamic effect to your logo competition logos. All right, take care. Bye.